Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. We're here to make a couple of announcements. One, at the end of the first one will be our daily COVID update, but the first one is one that's extremely important and relevant to the entire community. And that is, this morning I made a tremendously difficult decision when I asked Colonel Richard Legan to resign as police chief of the city of Gary. Colonel Legan complied with my request and submitted his letter of resignation promptly. Effective immediately, Deputy Chief Brian Evans will be our interim police chief. I have known Colonel Legan for many years, and I've always been extremely fond of his dedication to community, his service to not only his country, but the community at large, and everything that he's done for the city of Gary. I truly thank him for his service, and I wish him and his family all the best in the future. I asked Colonel Legan to resign for a few specific reasons. Number one, I believe that we need a different direction with our police department. One of the messages that I've heard from our residents, and I agree with their voices, is that we need a more community-focused and more community-oriented police department. We need leadership to guide us through the reform efforts and leadership that will provide new ideas and getting our officers engaged in a more actively rather, with our community and all of its residents. In addition to naming Brian Evans as the new interim police chief, we've also added Sergeant Michael Jackson will be the new deputy chief of police. Both of them are here this morning, and we'll have a few words for you as well. In addition to the reasons that I mentioned prior to that, I want to also mention that over the last legislative session, my team and I sought special legislation that would enable Colonel Legan to serve as police chief, and we were successful to a degree. But unfortunately, there's still an impediment that existed, and that is him having full police powers. I mention that to say that in this climate of reform, certainly nationally and definitely here locally, we need the most experienced, most dedicated, provided persons who are ready to assume those roles of responsibility. And I'm not suggesting that Colonel Legan wasn't ready. However, I believe, just as what's happening across the country, reform is going to look different, and we certainly need to put our very best foot forward and the best persons to lead that charge. And I believe I've made that decision and selected the right two people to do just that. As I said earlier, I wish Colonel Legan all the best with his endeavors, he and his family. I thank him for his service and his dedication to the community. But without further delay, I'd like to introduce our new Chief of Police, Brian Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. I would first like to thank Colonel Legan for his service to our community and leading the police department in this time, and everything that has happened during his tenure has been positive, and we'd like to thank him for his service. I'd also like to thank the mayor for continuing the continuum of service in the police department, and I dedicate myself to doing the best that I can do with the staff that we have to partner with our community in this most trying time in our country and in our community to try to bring a community-based solution to the challenges that face us. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Deputy Chief, Sergeant Michael Jackson.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, I'd like to thank both of you for this honor, and I'd like to say that as your new Deputy Chief of the City of Gary, I'm going to do everything I can to make a difference within our organization in the City of Gary. I've served in this city for almost 30 years now, and I plan to continue in the capacity that I have in the past. A lot of people may know me, but believe me, the ones who do know me, that I'm serious about my job, and I plan to continue that. Thank you.
So once again, we want to thank Deputy, or now Chief Brian Evans, and certainly Deputy Chief Michael Jackson for their willingness to take on this challenge and certainly to continue to enhance the efforts of the entire GPD department to make this a better, safer place. Gentlemen, I'm looking forward to working with both of you, and certainly if there's any questions or issues that you think we need to discuss, as I have been since we took office, I'll definitely be available to do that. Thank you both, and I wish you all the best as well. So that concludes that portion of it. We're going to go right into our COVID-19 updates. As usual, I introduce our guest today, and today I'm pretty excited about a very special guest. As usual, Dr. Roland Walker is here to share specific stats and statistics relative to the latest numbers of COVID and the trends that are being set in the city. But today we also have the General Manager of Spectacle Gaming, Mrs. Janae Erpenbach, and she's going to share a little bit of information with you about the reopening of Spectacle Gaming as well as what's to be expected in the future. As it relates to COVID, as you know, my team and I continue to closely monitor the results of COVID-19 data on a daily basis. Up to now, we've been encouraged by single-digit increases over the last 12 days, and to that extent, we believe that we're heading in the right direction. We also believe that our residents have, in most instances in our houses of worship, certainly done their best to adhere to the request to social distance and practice safe habits in the city of Gary. And to that, I want to thank them also. One thing that we do know is that as the weather continues to get warmer, we certainly anticipate increased activity at some of our local parks and specifically the beach. With Illinois being on a slightly delayed reopening schedule, we actually anticipate that we'll receive more visitors from that part of the region, and to that extent we're prepared to take a closer look at some of our processes and procedures and implement more restrictions if necessary, particularly as it relates to the upcoming holiday. My team and I will be meeting next Monday for suggestions and ideas as to how we can control the flow of traffic, but at the same time provide the opportunity for our local residents to enjoy the beaches. We want people to come out and enjoy our wonderful clean beaches, but we certainly want people to continue to practice safe habits. As I believe we all realize, as certainly evidenced by what's happening across the country in certain other states, that COVID-19 is certainly not over, and the potential to reinfect or to increase infection still exists. And to that end, we continue to encourage persons to practice safe distancing habits, which includes wearing a mask when you're in proximity of additional folks. Shortly after that, we will share the results of that particular meeting Monday, as well as any new restrictions that will apply for next week's, or actually a week and a half out, the 4th of July's activity. Without further delay, I would like to bring up Dr. Roland Walker to share the latest statistics, and shortly after that, you will hear from the GM of Spectacle Gaming, Mrs. Janae Erpenbach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, citizens of Gary. I'm always very appreciative of the opportunity to come before you and speak. Today, what I'd like to do is share the latest statistics, tell you what progress we've made, and then tell you the concerns that I have going forward and how we can protect ourselves as citizens. And so in the state of Indiana, we have now 389 new cases for a total of 41,746 cases. Total deaths in the state of Indiana is now up to 2,327. In Lake County, we're reporting 27 new cases, which brings our total positives up to 4,326, and we have 233 total deaths. So in the city of Gary, before I give these numbers, one of our goals was to try and set the rate of rise on the curve to a point where we felt comfortable, that we knew that we had some handle on it. And so with the help of our statistician, which his name is Martin Brown, we determined that anything less than 10 was going to set us on the curve, and we needed to do that. I set a rate of 14 days, which seems to be pretty consistent with the national average of people sending 14 consecutive days. Today, it's 13 days in a row where we've been under 10 people or less with new infections. Today, our new infection is 4. So on Saturday, if we reach that, we would reach 14 consecutive days. So we have 4 new cases to report today. Total for Gary, Indiana has been 752. 1 new death to report today for total deaths of 55. So what does that mean if you say 14 consecutive days? That would be a point where I'm comfortable saying to the mayor, if you are looking at relieving some restrictions, then this is something again that we can go forward with. However, doing that, you have to also look at national trends. And what we know now is that 23 states now are seeing increases, and alarming increases. And those can be strictly attributed to people not wearing face masks in public, opening things too fast. One of the things, I work closely with Ms. Urbanbach for the opening of the casinos. One thing I said when I was speaking to the team members there, I said that anything can be opened if opened properly, if we model properly, modeling wearing face masks. But if you do it improperly, I said this whole thing will start taking off really, really fast. So Gary citizens, I want to commend the Gary citizens. Our faith leaders, our businesses have done an excellent job. And if you look, Indiana is one of the 6 states that's remained steady over the last 2 weeks in terms of the number of increases. And Gary has been the most restrictive city in the state, and therefore, if you look closely, we are doing the best in terms of total infections. That being said, we're going to have a lot of visitors, particularly from Illinois. I took it upon myself, after consulting with the mayor, I reached out to the health commissioner of the city of Chicago to see what they're doing. And one of the things we've decided to do is to kind of coordinate both in what we're doing going forward in our messaging, so that people can understand that what happens in Chicago affects us. We've had discussion, the mayor, the police department, the parks department, about what that means, particularly at our beaches, which seems to be my greatest concern now. To tell you, one of the things that we've done is that where the health department can, we've levied fines upon people who have not gone forward and done things in a proper manner. To this date, people have come and paid those fines accordingly and said they would change their behavior. And so that's important, particularly when you're talking about Airbnbs, because people coming from outside areas are coming to those Airbnbs and want them to adhere to our rules, and we've been successful with that. Another concern that I have is going to be with contact sports. I've spoken with several health commissioners in the area, and they said they're not going to move forward with contact football, with basketball, but IHSAA in Indiana has said we're going to move forward with a schedule. We're one of the few states that said we're going to move forward with a schedule. So I just want to advise parents to really look at that closely and to think about what that means. The NFL, the NBA, they're not going to move forward without, the NBA is going to do testing daily. We don't have that capacity. That's not going to happen. So I would just question, why would we move forward with contact sports when there's no vaccination and we do not have the ability to test daily with contact sports? So just take that under advisement. Otherwise, I would say that in this city, once again, I just want to commend the citizens of Gary. We've done an excellent job adhering. When I go out in public, I'm seeing people wearing their face masks. I am seeing people distancing. It's different in our community as opposed when I go in other communities. So we are doing the work. But understand that we are a beach community and other people will be coming in to enjoy our beaches, and we have to come up with some strategies in order to mitigate any possible effects of that, of people coming in to enjoy our beaches with us. So that's why I'm asking people to continue to model behavior by wearing masks. Other people see that and they say, hey, I need to wear a mask as well. So I appreciate you for your time. One last thing I want you to think about also is wear your mask, because of the newest thing that came out yesterday in Chicago, and we are Chicagoland area, There was not one, but 3 main strains of the COVID virus now that we know about. The main one was the one that was seen in Chicago, but the prevalent one in Chicago is the one they're just calling the Chicago variation. And so we would assume that the Chicago variation is prevalent in Gary too, because we're Chicagoland area. So it is really, really important that we're washing hands and that we're wearing masks, because we do not know that the immunity for one is going to translate to the immunity for another one. So keep that in mind as well. And I thank you for your time. Thank you very much. And I might bring up, so right now we're going to bring up Ms. Janae Urbanbach, who is the General Manager for Spectacle Gaming, which we know as Majestic Casino. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walker. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to be here today. I feel like Dr. Walker and I have been tag teaming so many presentations lately because he was so good to come to Majestic Star on 6 different occasions and speak to our team members about a safe and healthy plan and how to exercise that plan. He was tremendously instrumental in the process, as was the city, our Methodist hospital partners, and different representatives of the city. They were absolutely wonderful in helping us put this together, and I appreciate it. I'm really happy to say the Majestic Star opened at 6 a.m. on Monday. We did it with a lot of due diligence and a lot of care. I can say that we are professing to be the safest and best bet in the region, and I believe that to be true. And the reason why I believe that to be true is because we created a very comprehensive and thorough plan and did not do it without the help of our partners. In that process, we considered so many safe elements. Our entrance is completely demarcated. It is social distanced. Every person who comes into Majestic Star Casino, they have their temperature taken, and anyone with a temperature of 100.4 and above are not allowed to admittance. We are also asking travel questions, symptomatic questions to every individual who enters to ensure that they are safe. We're giving out complimentary PPE to every person who enters, and that includes hand sanitizer, facial masks, information about COVID, and even finger cots for them to use as they are serviced throughout the facility. All of our entrances and exits are clearly separated and demarcated. Our slot machines and table games have been distanced throughout both of our facilities. In Gary, we have the luxury of having two complete casinos, 2 riverboat casinos. So we opened several floors on each side that weren't open before. And so we were able to very much social distance our product. We also created 2 non-smoking floors where we had only had 1 before. Now each first level of both casinos are completely non-smoking, and we increased the air filtration level of our entire property to an intake of over 40% of fresh air, and we increased our MERV rating on all of our air filtration to make sure that we are safe. We have signage everywhere. We tell people where to stand, how to move to make sure that they're safe. What we have found is the people of Gary, our customers, and many new customers that we're seeing from Illinois, have come in and are very patient with us. They've been kind to understand that we're trying to keep them safe, and they appreciate that. Lines look longer when people are standing 6 foot apart. So I think that we processed them quickly, and people enjoyed something that they had been waiting a long time, over 3 months, to be able to enjoy. The other things also, we're a highly regulated environment, so some of our things that we do are different than other businesses, and we take that very seriously. We have made sure that our restaurants are all distanced appropriately and queuing lines are distanced appropriately, and we made a lot of changes to those restaurants so that we can serve people. Sadly to say, we're not able to open our buffet, we're not able to have valet, and we're not able to have poker. But hopefully if Dr. Walker and the city and our community at large does the right things here in the next couple of months, and we're safe and healthy as we move forward, I believe that those restrictions eventually will change. But right now, people are making the best of a great entertainment opportunity that we have. And again, I thank the city, and I thank Dr. Walker and our community partners for helping us see this day through. Thank you.
Yeah, so that pretty much concludes the portion of our presentation today. We definitely want to thank Janae for coming over today, Dr. Walker as well, and again, welcome the new police and police chief and deputy chief. In closing, we just want to remind everyone that although it's been a few months since we've addressed this, and as we all know and has been articulated today, the community has responded in an appropriate fashion. In fact, what Janae didn't say is that her industry, and specifically her entity, is probably the most restrictive in the city of Gary, and we thank you for that, for helping to do your part to make sure that everyone remains safe and practice social distancing as it should be. Lastly, I want to say that, as I always end, there's just a few factors that we need to continue to remember, and that is, if we remain calm and we remain patient as we possibly can, we are certain to be able to get through this and any challenge that the city faces in the future together. I thank you for your time today again. To all the fathers, we certainly wish you a happy Father's Day weekend. Don't forget to come out to the food drive giveaways this weekend if you can. There's 2 more Saturdays left. They take place at the Genesis Center. The trucks come in about 9 o'clock. Cars start lining up shortly thereafter, and the distribution starts no later than 10. So if you or you know a family who is in need, please ask them to come out this Saturday or the next Saturday and participate in that as well. Thank you very much.